My people, I know if you talk this matter, I'm gonna let you just watch them. Hey, they say na audio regime now we dey so. This man don't vex talk. I bet I will do it and help me just share this video. Share and listen to this video from the beginning to the end. Omo, una when they happy, say Dubai, they don't lift band. India, they go bring business. Come one thing. My people, no before my camera mouth and go hear them. Make una watch who talk am. Guys, wanna share the video? Help me watch them. Leave your comment. Don't forget to follow this page. Like and follow this page. Go my YouTube channel, NHTV Hangout. Go help me subscribe. My people, may God help. Make you know be so we don't enter one chance. Guys, watch it.
From our studios in London by the lawyer, leading member of the PDP and spokesman of the Atiku presidential campaign, Daniel Bwala, who I'm told is now also a PhD student. Daniel, you wear so many hats, I'm never quite sure where to start. But let's just start from saying it's great to see you, old chap. Been a while, but lovely to have you on the program. And if you don't mind my asking, what's your PhD in?
Well, actually, thank you for having me, and good evening. I'm actually doing a research on anti-corruption, and my case study for the research is Nigeria. That has afforded me the opportunity to interface with the relevant investigative and anti-crime agencies around the world. So in the coming days, I'll probably give you more information about my findings and research, but basically that is what I am doing, all in the hope to see that I contribute my part to the development of the country, especially with respect to anti-corruption.
Well, some would say that you couldn't have chosen a better country for your topic than Nigeria. But congratulations. I mean, that's another feather to your cap. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of our interview. Clearly, Rome wasn't built in a day, so fixing Nigeria is going to take a while. But the president's supporters say he's off to a good start, citing his recent achievements with investors in India, sideline meetings with the world's top leaders at the G20 summit, and the lifting of a visa ban imposed on Nigerians by the UAE, amongst many other things. I mean, surely that's all good news for Nigerians, but you say it's all a big spin. Tell us why you think so.
Well, it would have been a good news if, for example, it is true. Unfortunately, it is not. It is said that we campaign in poetry, but we govern in prose. But it appears that they are still governing in poetry. You see, the 100 days of the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been uneventful, in my opinion. And like I said, I wish him well, but the pledge in Nigeria is, as I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest. We have to be honest, with ourselves and honest to our leaders. And that is patriotic action, so that our leaders will learn from our opinions on the way they are governing us. Now, what they have termed as achievement, quite frankly, can be seen by all as just exaggeration, over-exaggeration of their perception of what they call the achievement. Because in the last 100 years, if you ask a Nigerian, they will tell you that nothing has significantly changed in their lives. And you can look at every fabrics of our society, our lives, sorry. If you look at education, there is nothing that has happened in the education sector. If you look at labor, for example, they are still having back and forth, trying to negotiate basic salary and working conditions with ASU and other trade unions. If you look at healthcare, there is nothing that has happened, as a matter of fact. So they have now, because domestically there is nothing to show as a progressive result of what they are doing, they have decided to embark on foreign trips, in other words, diplomacy, to see if they can curry the favor and accolades. You see, there are two things I want to mention. The first one was the trip to India. And with the greatest respect, what I say can be verified. The trip to India was basically a global picnic. The G20 usually is like a global picnic where G20 members come and deliberate on world issues. But if it is successful, there will be a joint statement stating exactly what they intend to do, what they have agreed on. Because of the absence of China and Russia, they haven't been able to come up with any clear-cut direction on what to do. That's why the joint statement has been criticized by global leaders as watery. But that's even on one side. The president was invited as a member, and African Union celebrated the fact that they have been joined as permanent members. But it doesn't mean anything because the entire African Union has only one vote. So in other words, the rest of the country, two other countries can just wipe out whatever opinion African Union has. But the president of Nigeria left the country 4 days before the event, for reasons best known to him, because I'm sure if there are vital and important issues in the country, there would have been no need for him to travel to India. And at the time he arrived in India, the president of India was not even in the country. But let's cut the long story short in that regard. He met with businessmen. He took along with him Nigerian investors or businessmen. And from the report, and only one source will get the report, which is the media aid to the president, is that they secured victory, they secured promises, they secured billions, and they're just exaggerating and mentioning, monies that could not be verified either by the investors themselves, either through a joint statement, through their website, or through their personal social media handle. And it's just like when I come to do business with you and you say, I want to do this. But the intriguing fact about the investors is that they saw the domestic investors that were carried along to India. And they will be wondering, because investors are not like people who walk on the street. What they are advised before investing. They would have seen Nigerian businessmen that accompany the president. And if you look around and study in the past 4 or 5 years, they have encountered their own losses. I remember not long ago, I saw an article by Atedola that he nearly committed suicide because of the losses he incurred. Dangote, and then you find a lot of them. And the Indian investors will be wondering that if you want me to invest in your country, there should be evidence that those who are already investing in the country are succeeding. Unfortunately, the foreign policy objective of this government is misapplied. It is mixed. I don't know the better word to use, but to me, it does not carry any meaning. Because you see, if as a father, you want somebody to marry your daughter and you carry her to a picnic, the evidence of the good things to come is that your daughter should look pretty, should look healthy, should look robust, should look like she has been fed, and then the suitors will be attracted. But when you carry your daughter to a picnic and she look unkept, she look hungry, she look disjointed, deplorable condition and despondent, there is no way you can attract the investors. Short of the long story with India is that everything they said they secured as investment plan or promises could only be established by themselves. There is no one word from any investor in India that they have actually committed to such. Then they took the trip again to Dubai. It is in Dubai that we saw the object of caricature. Because all you need to do is to look at the statement issued by the media aid to the president, and you will tell yourself that this is a national embarrassment. Well, this evening, because we called them out, they are trying to backtrack, and they try to modify. One is that there was a meeting. It was a working visit. And what they agreed on was to discuss further and strengthen ties that will be of mutual benefit. You can see that in the official news agency website of the United Arab Emirates. There was no mention of an agreement for a visa restriction lifting. There was no mention of travel restriction lifting. There was no mention of specific dollars that they are going to put. And to further prove my point, just today, after the United Arab Emirates had agreed with Armenia in similar situation, the United Arab Emirates issued a statement specifically and in a clear terms that they have lifted certain restrictions with respect to travel to the people of Armenia. If such existed in the meeting yesterday, it would have been published in the website. Some international news media felt even embarrassed because the media aid blasted the news across all platforms around the world. And they reported, when you check Bloomberg and CNN and all other news outlets, you will see that their source is only one, unverified. Later in the evening, the media aid went to a TV station and tried to walk back by saying that, well, it is not immediate. Well, it is, they are going to fine-tune the details. The details which he said they stayed back to fine-tune. After the meeting, they started, moving their way.
Right. Well, Daniel, I'm just going to come in there.
That is not the way to govern.
Right. I'm just going to come in there because you've made a lot of very illuminating points there. First of all, let me just take, and I'm not a spokesman for the government, obviously, but they're not here to defend themselves. So I'm just going to take the first thing, one of the things that you talked about, which is Dangote and the other people who accompanied the president as sort of big business people and investors in Nigeria, ostensibly to go abroad and help convince other business people that it's worth investing in Nigeria. I mean, you may have a point in saying that it's not all shipshape and seaworthy, but I mean, Dangote is the richest man in Africa. He's been that consistently, and most of his wealth has come from what he's been doing in Nigeria. So there's an argument to be made for that, as well as some of the other people who run some of the biggest companies that go beyond Nigeria across the rest of Africa. And also on the issue of visas, I mean, everybody reported it, and you're right in saying that the source was always the president's spokesman, that, that's where it came from, and from no one else, including the BBC and all the rest of them. But the fact remains, and I haven't seen the website that you're talking about. You may well have a plausible point there. But the fact remains that those, usually in these circumstances, it is always a first step, and one side in those negotiations tend to be given the chance. I mean, often you see it with the US and some other people. Somebody else is given that opportunity to make the announcement because they want to get publicity, some kind of publicity capital from it. Now, I'm not disputing, I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. I'm simply saying that in the context of international relations, that is the way things tend to happen. But let me turn to another point that you mentioned in your very interesting tweet earlier. which is the picture of Mr. Tinubu that they released that you said was about meeting Mr. Biden. But according to you, beyond that handshake that we saw, there was no sideline meeting. Would you care to sort of enlighten us more?
Right, I'll do that, but permit me to clear one point that you mentioned. You see, when there is a meeting of two countries or two counterparts, once the resolution is done, usually there is a joint statement. In the event there is no joint statement and there's going to be individual statement, there will be corroborative statement. It means the government of Nigeria will be able to address the press there about what they agreed on, and then the government of the United Arab Emirates will confirm either directly or separately. But as it stands today, it is only Nigeria version. There is no word from the United Arab Emirates that corroborated that point, other than the fact that they have agreed to deepen ties to look at issues that has that's of common interest. You're asking them to come and invest in Nigeria when they can't even recoup the one they've invested through their airline. That's one. With respect to, so it applies to India. With respect to the businessmen, I talk about fact-based information. Over the last 8 years of APC administration, you can check it, or anybody listening tonight can check. Dangote has lost not less than $5 billion. And you can run that through all the businessmen in Nigeria. Well, they will try to say pandemic, whatever, they will give excuse. But Nigerian investors, domestic investors, even with all the leverages they get in terms of tax holidays, still they have not been able to break the jinx because our local laws, the private sector has not been given the thriving environment. And so what it means is that the president should stay and develop the house, and then investors will find it attractive. With respect to the meeting in India, U.S. Biden cannot, when it is not pre-arranged, that
it looks like we're having a bit of a connection problem. You'll stay with us, of course, because I'm presuming that the internet connection is going to right itself in a moment. Daniel Bwala there talking about that ostensible meeting between President Biden and President Tinubu. And Daniel, you're back online, so please continue from where you left off.
Right. So I'm saying that I'll give you an instance of the point I'm trying to buttress. You have Rishi Sunak was in India. He was billed to meet Prime Minister Modi, but because that day was arranged for Modi to meet with Joe Biden, even though he made effort to meet the man, he could not. He had to meet him the next day. That's diplomatic protocol. And as far as we know, there was no plan for President Biden to meet with President Bwala at the G20. So when they met, they shook hands. It was just the shaking of hands after they visited one of the Hindu sites or whatever. So there was no sign. The point I'm trying to make is that the media machine of the president is projecting itself as awful and even worse than the previous administration. Because in the previous administration, they will give the information as it were, but they are not forceful in making the argument. In this one, they are forceful in the communication of misinformation, forceful in their misleading of the Nigerian people. And you often hear them say, we try as much as possible to be honest with Nigeria. It's not a big deal to meet this president, but don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Don't make it seem like photo ops and shaking of hands will amount to foreign investments as they are trying to project. By next week, when the president of Nigeria will meet President Biden based on protocol, that is when you can talk about sidelines. In fact, I told myself, if the G20 meeting and the Dubai, they try to make a whole caricature of our territorial integrity, by next week when they will meet with a lot of presidents, either in hallway, in escalators, in sidelines, in meetings like that, I am only imagining what they will be projecting. They will probably say the entire United Nations have planned to come and invest in Nigeria. All I'm trying to say in essence is that you can only develop and make your country attractive when you focus on your domestic policies, on national security interests and national interests of the country. Now, it is contained in your manifesto. You have abandoned that and you're on a foreign trip to use photo ops as evidence of either legitimacy or evidence of prosperity. That cannot work. Mark what I'm saying, and I'll be happy to come back to your studio. In the next 1 year, you will see nothing from Dubai as per investment. You will see nothing from India as per investment, because they are just photo ops and statements. There are no specificity, there are no deliverables, and there are no timelines. So this is the point we're trying to say. Focus on insecurity in the country. Okay, look at the National Security Advisor. He's like an elder brother or uncle to me. National Security Advisor is in every meeting of this government, political meeting, meetings that have nothing to do with national security.
Well,
now,
you make some really good points. Right. You make some very interesting points, Daniel. I suppose time will tell. We'll have to wait and see whether all the investment pledges that they talked about, because I mean, obviously when it's a pledge, it means that somebody pledges to invest in your country contingent on certain other things that if you do them, we will then invest. I mean, but